Hi, I'm Dana and welcome to episode 3 of Learning to be Autistic. The first episode will be linked here somewhere, but for those of you that haven't or don't want to watch the other parts, this series has come around because I was diagnosed as autistic at 21. And I felt like I then had a million extra things that I needed to learn about myself and how I function as a person and how I work as a person with autism versus just an average neurotypical person. And the more I learn about myself, the more I realise I need to learn. Today I really wanted to talk about accepting being autistic, especially if you've received a late diagnosis like I did, and especially if it's even later than mine was since I was only 21. I feel that in the autism community, and especially amongst those who didn't find out until later in life like me, we very often talk about how incredibly relieving it is to figure out like, oh, I'm not weird or broken or wrong in some way, I'm just autistic. You know, we talk about how that's really comforting and a real relief. And it definitely is, eventually. You know, and this is purely my experience. I'm not saying this is how it is for all autistic people, but obviously we're all very, very different. So I think that the only way we can really educate people on autism is if as many of us as feel comfortable doing so, put ourselves out there and talk about our experiences. So that's what I'm trying to do. So straight off the bat, when I got my diagnosis, I did feel like a degree of relief, you know? All the years that I spent, especially in school, being told that I was weird and I was a freak and I was different and I was just really bullied for not fitting in, suddenly made sense. You know, lots and lots of situations and things about me and things in my life suddenly made a whole lot of sense. And with time and reflection and everything else, it has been a big relief for me. But it wasn't initially. You know, just because things make sense doesn't make them okay. So although I understood why these things had happened now, I understood why people saw me as being different, I understood why I didn't necessarily fit in, I understood why I struggled so much in social situations and in a lot of situations in life. There were lots and lots of things that made sense, and that was great, but it also sent me on a bit of a spiral of like, so it's gonna be like that forever, I guess. Because, you know, like a lot of autistic women, I was misdiagnosed with a bunch of other things. I'd been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. There was talks of me being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. There were talks of them looking into if maybe I had bipolar disorder. I was just autistic the whole time. But for the most part, all of these other things I'd been diagnosed with were things that, you know, with work or with medication or with therapy, I'd be able to get past them. It wouldn't be a life sentence essentially of like, you're going to be depressed forever or you're going to be anxious forever. But being told that it's that my brain works differently and that's why things have felt so difficult and sometimes just straight up impossible and everyone else seems to find them so bloody easy. It felt like a complete, like, you're going to be like this forever. You're going to feel like crap forever. You're never going to fit in. You're never going to be able to like socialise and have friends. It felt like a complete just, this is how you're going to be. You know, and that was me completely taking it in the wrong way. I absolutely don't feel like that anymore. Sure, there are some things that I'm probably going to always struggle with or always find difficult, but that doesn't mean I can't move past them. It doesn't mean I can't grow and change and learn and better myself. You know, an autistic trait is just a trait. It doesn't mean that I can't make it easier. It doesn't mean I can't find ways around it. But it took me a good, I want to say probably a year to get out of that mindset of just feeling like, oh crap, I'm gonna be a loser forever. And it's just not the case. It's just not how it is. I can still better myself. I can still learn new things. Being autistic doesn't make me stupid. It doesn't make any of us stupid. We can still work on things and become better people and make our lives easier or better or more enriched. It might just take a little more time. It might just be a little more difficult. We might need a little extra support and nothing's wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. It can make things a little more difficult. But life's difficult for everyone, no matter what, anyway. These are just our difficulties, or my difficulties. And obviously since then, I've worked on myself a lot. And I'm still working on myself. I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot. But there's a big difference between figuring out who I am as a person and figuring out who I am as an autistic person, in my opinion. You know, as a person, there's lots of things that I do or want to do or have done and so on and so forth that just don't align with my autism at all. For example, I really love music. I really love writing songs. I really love singing. I really love playing guitar. And the obvious step from there is, okay, I'm gonna make a band. So I'd get a band together and we'd have like a few little rehearsals, and sometimes it went well, sometimes it didn't. And I very quickly learned that I cannot handle live performances at all. Like, I really can't do it. I get so anxious and so in my head and so overwhelmed by like the noise and the lights and everything else and all the things that I've got to remember and all the things that I've got to do, that I can't even like find the pitch that I'm supposed to be in. It's thoroughly impossible. So that's a place where who I am as a person and who I am as an autistic person doesn't quite align. And it does suck. It's really shit, actually. And it's one that's incredibly difficult to find accommodations for. I can't have them turn off the stage lights. I can't be like, everyone be quieter. The band included, everyone quieting down a bit. It's getting a bit much for me, even with my little earplugs in. You know, it just doesn't work like that. That's not how the world is. So it just means that as much as I might love music, as much as I'm always going to create music, I don't think I'm ever going to try and perform it live again, because it's horrible. It's really horrible for me to try and do that. It puts me in a lot of mental spaces. It overwhelms me completely. And as an autistic person, it just doesn't work for me. And that's purely me, okay? Like, there's lots and lots of musicians who are autistic and who do play live on a daily basis and do it incredibly well. That's just part of my autism and who I am. But my point is that the autistic person that I am and the person that I am in general as a human being, regardless of autism, they don't always quite... It's a bit like they just do that sometimes, you know? They just fly past each other and I'm just like, oh shit. And that was a big one that I had to learn and accept. You know, you've got to learn where your boundaries are and how much you can realistically actually do. Wanting to do something can go a long way, but sometimes it's just not physically or plausible. Like, sometimes it just cannot happen. It's an important thing to accept and work through so that you're not upset about it all the time, because it broke my heart for a good while. And now I'm just sort of okay with it. Like, I still think it sucks. It'd still be really cool if I could do that, but I'm alright with it now. And while trying to figure out who I am, like as an autistic person, obviously one of the first things that I did was try to find other autistic people. Because even though I have an autistic brother, I still had quite an ableist and very small view of what autism really is. I had done research. I'd managed to like self-diagnose before I went for my diagnosis. I was still very on the fence, but I was pretty sure I was autistic. So I had done research and I'd learned like there's differences between males and females, there's all these different traits, there's all of these different things. I had done research, but I still had a very ableist and very stereotypical view of what an autistic person is. To be completely honest, I sort of saw myself as this like special little snowflake. I'm like the only autistic woman in the universe. And very quickly I obviously got over that, because there's like 100,000 other awesome autistic women out there that are making videos and doing blog posts and speaking about things on Twitter. And I very quickly learned that I'm not alone. I'm not the only autistic person that's like this. There's lots of autistic women and dudes that are like me and that I can relate to and that I see myself in a lot, and that's really, really lovely. But obviously there's a huge amount of diversity within the autism community. Every autistic person is different, no matter how relatable I may find them. And that means that sometimes you come across the people that are stereotypically autistic. And I had to really work on not sort of judging those people. I sort of saw them as like, oh, so you found out you're autistic and you just gave in to like liking this thing that autistic people like, or being this type of way. And that was, I think, me sort of trying to reject like, oh, well, I'm not that type of autistic person, you know, I'm this type of autistic person, they're not like me, that's like a different type of autism. And that just isn't a good way to look at things. It's ableist, it's rude, it's mean, it's not how I want to be as a person. So I very much had to sort of delve into like the stereotypes of autism and accept that like, yo, some people do play to what's expected. Some people are the expected form of autism, and that's fine. If anything, it's a good thing, because it means they probably got diagnosed earlier and got the help that they need earlier. It's a positive thing. And when autism's so widely diverse, there are going to be people that act in the way that outsiders seem to expect, or the way that we're told autistic people act. And, you know, they're still perfectly valid. And they are not any sort of infringement, I guess, on me. The fact that we're both autistic means basically nothing because people are still so different. But you know, as humans, we like to sort of put things in neat little boxes. And autism isn't a neat little box. It's a gigantic box that's like 12 stories high and has all these bits built off the side of it, like the Weasley's house, because we all fit in there somehow. We're all autistic, who are autistic, not like everyone, obviously. But every autistic person is an autistic person, and we're all vastly different, but we're still autistic. And once I sort of accepted that, like, some people are the kind of people that you can look at and talk to and tell that they're autistic. Some people do like stereotypically autistic things, and that's just fine. It makes no difference to me. It makes no difference to me or my autism. And accepting that allowed me to just be a lot more accepting of my autism, because I think there were some things that I had, especially like in stims and sensory issues, that are quite stereotypically autistic. And I was trying to block them out to not be that person. And it's just ridiculous. We're a community. And that kind of infighting and sort of like hierarchy, I suppose, I was trying to create in my own head, it's just no use to anyone. It's not a good thing. It's not a positive thing. And I'm really glad that I got over it. But I think it's a perfectly valid thing to deal with when you found out you're autistic. It's a big change to go through mentally, because it's been there all along and you're only just finding out. It's kind of a mind trip. And by embracing the way that they are and the ways that they're different from like the average neurotypical, embracing the person that they are as an autistic person definitely made it easier to embrace who I am. I think as well, embracing other people's differences, both from myself and from like the average neurotypical, it allowed me to embrace a lot more of my own like quirkiness, I suppose, my own differences, my own difficulties as well. You know, a lot of being autistic is struggling with things and finding things difficult and finding that society isn't structured in a way that allows me to thrive. And embracing all of those things makes it just so much easier to exist as a person with a brain. And I think so much of finding out you're autistic later on is about just accepting and embracing it. Because one thing that I don't think really gets talked about in regards to adults with autism and the actual autistic person going through it is sort of grieving for what you were or what you had. I've seen a lot online about parents of autistic children grieving for like the perfect little healthy child they were supposed to have, but instead they've got this autistic child. And I think that's completely lame. You shouldn't have put that much expectation on your baby or child anyway. Like, they're 4 years old. Why are you already imagining their girlfriend? It's weird. But when it comes to being an adult with autism, being the autistic person in the situation, I think it's fair and almost, in my experience, for me, necessary to sort of grieve past experiences and grieve what you expected from life and grieve having lost being a neurotypical person. You know, it kind of relates back to before with the mental health stuff, with thinking that it was something you could overcome, it was something you could get past, it was something you could learn to handle. And suddenly that's not the case. And you look back and you see all of these times of like, this would have been so much easier if I hadn't been autistic. And I wouldn't have had to go through this if I wasn't autistic. And you know, maybe XYZ wouldn't have led to XYZ if I hadn't been autistic. And I definitely had to look back on so many times and just sort of grieve for that version of me that didn't know how I was different and was just trying so hard to get through life as a normal person. And as well as grieving for that like past version of myself, it's almost a grief for the things that I expected. You know, I expected that one day every issue I have was something I would overcome with a little bit of therapy or something. I thought one day life will be easy, I won't ever feel anxious, I won't feel overly sad. Obviously everyone feels sad sometimes. And you know, maybe that was me being way too ambitious anyway, because mental health problems don't just go away either. But I still thought that I would eventually have a much easier life filled with less struggles. And once you know you're autistic, you know that that's likely not going to be the case. You know, I don't want to be a complete downer. I don't want to not be autistic. I don't want to find a cure. There's much worse things that could happen to me than being autistic. I very much see it as a neutral thing about me and not a positive or negative thing. But it's a fact that life would be easier if I wasn't. And you do sort of grieve having lost the opportunity of having that ease, or at least I did. I keep saying you, I mean me. And it's a difficult topic to talk about. And I think it's difficult to talk about because it's sort of saying, this isn't who I wanted to be. This isn't the best version of myself that I expected to come out. And that's not true. I can be the best version of myself as an autistic person, just like I could have when I thought I was a neurotypical person. But you've got to change your mindset, or at least I had to change my mindset when I found out I was autistic. And it's almost more so grieving the mindset that I had before. I think it's maybe even kind of grieving that I've almost lost a part of who I thought I was by discovering that I was autistic. And they're the bits that I've got to like notice for the first time and figure out and be like, oh, where does that lead? And it's difficult. But I think that it's already helped me to figure myself out a lot, and it's only going to help me to become a better person and more confident and more, I don't know, just better, more better, there you go. It's going to help me to become better, I think. And, you know, I don't think I'm going to overcome every issue I've ever had. I'm not going to completely be anxiety free at any point in my life, I don't think. But I can work on it so that it's manageable, so that it's not there all the time. But it's a grief for having thought that one day that'd just all be gone. And I think it's kind of a grief for the naivety and the innocence that I had in thinking that. I don't know if grief is the right word at this point, I've been saying it for a while. And I think the final thing I want to say, I've probably forgotten something that I'll want to add in like 3 weeks. But the final thing I want to talk about is that I think a major part of me being able to accept myself and being able to be a part of the autism community, which increasingly helps me to understand myself and learn more about myself and accept myself, was accepting that other people have their own views on autism, whether they're neurotypical or other autistic people. Everyone has their own little idea and view of autism, and they won't always align with mine. And that can be difficult because it's who I am, it's a part of me, and you're telling me that's wrong because you don't experience it? And there is work that we need to do, because no one should be telling me that my opinion's wrong or that my diagnosis is wrong or so on and so forth. I'm going to have a video coming about that. But when people are respectful of the things that they're saying and presenting it, hopefully, how I am, how I'm intending to present this in a very, this is my opinion, this is how I feel, you don't have to feel like this is just me. When they're presenting it in that kind of way, I think it's very important to accept them and validate that. And I think allowing and validating other people in their journey of like learning about themselves as a person and as an autistic person can only help you do the same with your own stuff. And that's definitely how I feel. You know, I've got a couple of autistic friends now that I talk to online, which is amazing and really nice. Hi, shout out, Hassan, I see ya. We're all very different people and we all have our own views on who we are and how our autism presents and what autism is to us. And I think it's really important to learn from other people, you know, even if you don't agree with them, even if you don't see it in the same way, even if you don't experience the same things. I think it's really important to listen and accept and validate them for their experience. And listening to others is always going to help us understand ourselves better, I think. I try as much as I can to just listen to other people talk about things. And there's an absolute wide array of things in my life that I've learned and improved on and grown within myself by listening to other people. And especially in the autism community with us all being so diverse, I think it's very important. Finding out you're autistic later on in life can be a complete mindfuck. It can be really weird. It can make you question so many things and wonder about so many things and sort of imagine what life might have been like without it. And it does also help you understand a bunch and figure things out. And it can be a massive, massive relief. But there was a bunch of stuff that came before the relief for me. And I think it's important to talk about that in a video like this. So I think that's all I have to say for now. I think a lot of my videos are going to end up having like an extra part in a few months' time because I've reflected more and thought of more things. But for now, I just spat everywhere, God. But for now, that's all I had to say. If you've made it this far into the video, I'd really love it if you maybe gave my video a little like and subscribe. Subscribe to my channel, not the video. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I've been filming for a while. It's very hot today. But whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you have a great day, evening, afternoon, morning, whatever you're on to now. I hope you have a good one. and I'll see you again in a few days.